Welcome, everyone. Alana and I would like to discuss ADHD and finance and where the two meet.
Hi, welcome everyone. So I am Alana Stern. I am an ADHD coach and I have a practice called JDHD coaching. I have a process, the JDHD process, that is designed to help neurodivergent Jewish adults who struggle with all the extra organization, planning, and time management that subscribing to a Jewish life demands. I specialize in working with women who have ADHD. You know that joke they say about Thanksgiving and how everybody's going crazy about making their Thanksgiving meal and what they're doing, and the Jews are saying, oh, we do this like twice, 3 times every Friday. So that's a lot of extra executive functioning demands. So having a coach who truly understands exactly the struggles that you're going through can help. I work together with them to build a smoother, easier, and more organized life. And tell us about you, Rifka.
So I'm a financial planner, I'm a CFP. We plan people's finances from the smaller things like budgeting to the bigger things like inheritances and overseeing investment management and all of that. And the idea is that I have seen a lot in my work in the past few years, and this is why I reached out to you, Alana, that there are patterns with people who have ADHD. Not everyone's the same, obviously, but there are definitely patterns where when I'll say something like, do you happen to have an Excel of what you've done? And people are like, shudder, like, oh, I'm not doing that. Or I'll be like, is your tax up to date? And they're like, no. Or they just cannot be on top of their finances. They don't know what's going on. And, on the good side, a lot of these people have made a lot of money. There seems to be definitely a correlation between making money, ability to run a business. But when it comes to the details and organizing themselves for the details, seeing that that's really a struggle. And that's why we're here today.
Yeah. So I always want to tell everybody that, ADHD, the D stands for disorder, but it totally can just be a condition, not a disorder. And those are the people who've harnessed this condition for themselves and they're making a lot of money. Other people, it presents difficulties in their life, some dysfunction, and some people, when the dysfunction is more than the function, then it becomes a disorder. I like you talked about the word patterns, and because I have my 6 Ps of the things that I think are difficult for keeping up with your financial management. These are not your skills. If you have ADHD, you have amazing skills and strengths, but these are not yours. Prioritizing, planning, overcoming procrastination, persisting over time for the, acting for the future, and pausing before you spend your money. So tell us a little bit about how you work, in your different levels of working with people, and then I'll elaborate a bit about the skills that are needed for that.
Sure. So basically, when it comes to financial planning, there's so many different levels and things, but it's sort of like a puzzle. I see it as a puzzle, and there's different parts that need to fit in place. So you've got like your goals and how you want to live, and your culture, even like I'm used to buying this or doing that or living a certain lifestyle. So you've got those, and we need those to align with our money. We have our month. So that's like the short-term money. We have our longer-term things. We have our lifetime. We have, whether we are planning correctly for our retirement, which for some people, especially young people, are like, oh, that's so far away. And they don't realize that like that planning, even a small amount now, can make a tremendous, tremendous difference. There are things like, when will our even just planning, like I'm going to buy a house now if I can afford it. So I'm going to plan for that so that I've paid it off before I retire. Now that's really long-term thinking and planning. There's things like smahot, wills, documentation. I started seeing with ADHD clients and with other clients, but certainly with ADHD clients where I'm like, okay, do you have a will? Do you have this? Do you have that? Where are your bank accounts? Don't know. And suddenly you're like, 1 minute, let's put everything in one place. There's a skill there too of like, know what we have. So basically when someone is truly financially smarter, they have all the different levels in place. They have the short term, they have the long term, they have emergency money, they have investments. They're not making impulsive decisions that ruin their whole plan. So it does require a lot of skills to
Yes,
really be financially smarter and attention to detail and the
yes,
ability to follow up, to know where
yes.
it stands.
All things that are not don't come naturally to people with ADHD, but that doesn't mean there's no hope. It just means that there are things you can do to support yourself. So I love the way you describe this as moving through different levels, because moving through levels requires a certain amount of commitment over the long term. And the problem with people with ADHD, it's not that they're lazy or they can't commit or they don't want to. They know that it's important to do things for your future. The difficulty with ADHD is future blindness or a myopia, short-sightedness, in that they don't know how to let that future importance influence today's decisions. It's not that they don't know that it's important to plan for the future. It's hard to act today in service of the future. So some tips for that, which I'm going to implement this as of next month, that automatic savings have, instead of seeing what's left at the end of the month for you to put into your savings, take savings out automatically at the beginning of the month, and don't have it that you have to struggle to act towards your future self every month. Let it be automatic, so that you're not having that tension with yourself. Yeah.
I'll add that that's something we definitely use. Like we've started working differently with people. I mean, anyway, we automate savings for people, but like savings, investments, many things, but certainly for people with ADHD, I totally agree with you. It's something we've been doing because we want to reduce the amount of work and the amount of thought that like, is there left? Isn't there? I forgot, whatever. So
yeah,
definitely.
automation, it saves brain energy for someone who's got a lot of activity in their brain. Another thing that helps sometimes with that, like acting towards a future goal, is having some kind of visual reminder. So, if you're putting away money towards owning your own house, you would have a picture, I don't know, or a family vacation or whatever. You have a visual picture to remind you of that end goal, because people with ADHD have a difficulty envisioning seeing the end goal. So make it tangible, because intangible, it's difficult to act on the intangible. You talked about impulsivity, and it gave me a lot to think about when you said that having an accurate picture of your finances, being financially smart in that way, prevents impulsivity. And I realized that, first of all, with people with ADHD, it's because everything's everywhere, it's difficult to have an accurate picture. And there's a sense, when you act impulsively, there's a sense of gamble there, because it's like, I may have the money for this, I may not have the money for this. And in a bad way, there's an element of excitement in that I'm just going to spend it and hope for the best. And that's a gamble. And that gives you a dopamine hit. And people with ADHD, what's the regulating their own dopamine. So I think that's what's going on with the impulsivity. But if you did have an accurate picture and you knew that you couldn't afford this, I think that would help a lot with the impulsivity. People with ADHD, the most painful thing is boredom, mundane, lack of stimulation, nothing. So a gamble is more interesting than nothing.
So interesting that you say that, because I see that. And sometimes you're like, but 1 minute, you committed that this month we're doing whatever because we're saving for that. And it's like, yeah, well, I, went and, bought something, and you're like, yeah, we're going to Europe in first class. And you're like, what?
Your breaks are too weak.
Right.
So a lot of the tips I have to kind of buy yourself time, some of them came from you. I will never forget when you told me to take 1-click buy off my Kindle and Amazon.
Yeah.
That remove the 1-click buy, and they make it very difficult for you to find out how to remove it, but persist and take it off. It makes a big difference. I think as much as you can, these things like Apple Pay and Google Pay and even credit cards, they're much more convenient, but you don't feel the money leaving your hand like you feel it leaving your hand with cash. If I paid a gym over 3 years, it doesn't motivate me to go because I forget about that. But when I have to pay in advance every month for 4 classes to somebody, then it keeps me focused on it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very true. There's a concept in finance called the pain of paying. And it's proven that when you pay cash, there's a certain pain because I had this, 200 check out and I handed you it. I don't have it. When I hand you a credit card or press a button on my phone, I have the same button there still. I haven't lost anything. I'm not feeling it.
Yes. You reminded me that another thing that I found helpful with when I was filling in the budgeting sheet when I was working with you, my husband said, okay, let's make a row showing you what's remaining. So every time you added something you spent, you saw that remaining total go down.
Right. I can imagine, they have these things where like, I don't know, if someone's fundraising for something and they'd have where they show it fill up. So that's the opposite, but it's sort of this, like when you were talking before about like someone wants to save up for a holiday or a house, it's sort of like that visual came to mind for me. Like that would help people. That would show them the detail. Like I need to, I've been working with a lot of young couples who are like, we want to buy in Israel and it's really, really hard. A lot of money it takes to down payment. And you're like, okay, it's got to take focus for 3-4 years. Sometimes longer for people. Right. And like, I feel like that's a great idea to like show the couples that need it, the graph going up. So it's like, okay, we can see it. We can actually visualize getting there.
And you have milestones in your whatever barometer, thermometer, whatever it is, because that the strategy for staying focused on a long-term goal where the reward is only far in the future is to give yourself many rewards along the way.
Right.
I make a rule for myself that sometimes I don't listen to, but I should, that if anything's over 100 shekels and I'm about to buy it, I think that online consumption is much easier. Like that, even pressing that button is easier than opening your wallet. So I have a rule that if I'm going to buy anything online, I have a 24-hour rule. Oftentimes I can kind of talk myself off the ledge of that, like that excitement of the impulsivity.
Right. That's great because it gives time also because like accountability is something big here too. Like, are we accountable for our actions? So if we stop and pause, it allows us to let that accountability and like, 1 minute, I committed to doing X. Does this fit in or whatever?
Yeah. And even more so if you committed and Rifka's going to see it and you're going to have to explain yourself, not just to yourself, but to Rifka. I will say that I haven't worked with anybody as compassionate and non-judgmental and understanding as you, like for financial help. The accountability was felt safe and not like a threat, which was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you're only going to fill in your spreadsheet once a month, it's going to take you hours. I figured out that it's better to do it, at the end of every week. So then it's less time to do that. Something that can help you with that consistency, because people with ADHD can feel trapped by consistency and routine because their lives thrive on novelty and spontaneity. So if I know that before Shabbat comes in on a Friday, I have to have done my week's budgeting. Just a tip for people with ADHD they have a weak working memory. So why do they forget all the time? Most people can, they have a bucket called a working memory where they can carry 7 things at a time. Sorry, it's humanly possible to carry only 7 things at a time. That's why phone numbers used to have 7 numbers. Most people can carry 4. People with ADHD can carry 1 or 2. That's why you walk into a room and forget why you went there, because your bucket is much smaller. So just remembering to do your budgeting, have that as a reminder, make it a habit the same time every week. And when you're doing it, what helped me was having 2 screens, because when you have the weak memory, you look and you say, okay, I spent 4 shekels 50 on this. And by the time you've gone back to the Excel, you've forgotten how much it is. So have your banking on one screen and your Excel on another screen, or split your screen.
I think that really helps. So helpful. I think like what we've started doing with everyone, but especially with people with ADHD, is like not using spreadsheets the way we used to with heavy and numbers and everything. We gave people key numbers. We've moved to key numbers, and those key
Yes.
numbers are like, okay, I know that X amount could be on my credit card. I know, and because I'm responsible and we set it up correctly, that my bills are all being paid automatically back to the automation. And I know that I'm investing automatically back to that automation. And I know that my credit card's allowed to be a certain amount or my cash allowed to be. And we have those key numbers because if someone has 3 numbers that they need to track, it's going to be so much easier. We want small steps. We want to make it easy for people. And it's whether it's building wealth or budgeting, like on either picture, we just want to take out all the head work and decisions and whatever. Also, one of the things we've done is a lot more hand holding. I find, and I'm sure you do too, that like people just need that little more hand holding to make it actually happen.
Yes. Yes. Once we finished working together, I always wanted to like have a date night with my husband where I don't know, we went out together with our laptops and we had a nice drink in our hands and we did our budgeting. And like, you need an incentive if you have ADHD. If you have ADHD, it's okay to use tangible rewards if intangible rewards aren't going to motivate you. It's okay to bribe yourself to go out, and do your budgeting.
Right. Make it fun. Like we will go out and get, I don't know, ice cream or whatever, drinks, whatever, and we will do it. And if it's in a good atmosphere, the financials in a good atmosphere, like we're not blaming anyone, we're not whatever. Even if our investments have gone down right now, not up, like we're there to learn together and we're there to do it and we're there to take care of it. Super, super helpful for people, like to really just make it fun. You're right. Because
It reminded me of that, the hand holding that you talk about. There's this concept of how do you teach a skill to a child, to anybody, right? And to a young adult who's maybe behind in certain organizational skills. And this is what I really think what you did with them. The first thing is you show them how and they watch. So the first time we're, the budgeting together, you're showing them what to do. It may take a month, it may take a week, it may take one time each stage. The second one is you're doing it together. The third stage is they're probably doing it at home and then they're coming back to show you. And then the final stage is they're able to do it on their own. So
nice.
I feel like that's what you took us through.
Right. You're giving people more control. You're making it simpler for them. And all of these things are part of really living a financially smarter life. Is like, we have to do it. We can't ignore money. I've met clients who like, never looked at my bank account for 20 years unless the bank called, and they called a lot. And you're like, okay, we need to take that control into our hands, even if it's challenging, and make it doable with all the different tips you've given and the hand holding that some people need, like whatever it is, but make sure we're on top of it because it makes a difference. It can make a difference, a huge financial difference to people. Huge financial, like, oh, we saved enough when we got a house, or we saved enough when we have an investment, and we saved
knowledge. Yeah.
Absolutely. The difference is tremendous. It's not like, okay, we'll get to the same place either way.
Yeah.
It truly makes a financial difference.
And what you did was breaking it down to bits at a time. That's one of the ways that you avoid procrastinating, or you avoid ADHD avoidance. There's this avoidance thing that, my bank account might look like a scary monster. So actually my like kind of lower level brain, it's actually a coping mechanism not to look at it because you don't want to add extra stress to yourself. So the way to handle procrastinating something because it's too complex is to break it down into smaller, less scary steps. The other reason people procrastinate is if it's too boring for them. And that's where you can do a date night, or you can have supportive accountability. You can challenge yourself to do it within a certain time. Or you said something about attention to detail being difficult for people with ADHD, are often big picture thinkers. So I think it's totally valid or legitimate, and it makes sense. Outsource what's not your strength to someone else so that you can save your energy and spend more time with things that you do care about, that you're passionate about, that you can make money from, and that using your strengths. Thriving with ADHD is not about getting 100% organized. It's about getting organized enough so that you can have energy to do what you really love to do and what you're good at. And I think that's okay, that there's other people. First of all, you're doing a lot of the teaching people how to be financially organized enough. But I also think it's okay that if you have the means, then you shouldn't, you don't have to break your teeth over it if you're
Right.
making a lot of money. Yeah.
We're not we're not expected to do everything, like
Yeah.
everybody. Like I'm going to hire a professional to help me with my, legal stuff and with my, like people hire other people, but very often I'll get people really embarrassed. Like I'm so embarrassed. I don't know what's going on with my money. I'm like, but it's the same with
Yeah.
anything else that you have help with. Like
Yeah.
we need to acknowledge that, yeah, this is something that's not our strength. We have our strengths. I've had people so smart, so brilliant, PhDs, whatever,
Yes.
or just brilliant people without PhDs. You don't have to have a PhD to be brilliant. And they're like so embarrassed. Like, I can't believe I can't do this. I've had accountants come to
Yeah.
me and they're like, I can do accounting at work. I can't deal with my own finances. And people are very, embarrassed about it. And I'm always like,
Yeah.
I hire people to do stuff. Should I be embarrassed that I can't, don't like cleaning my house? I don't love
Right.
cooking. Like we all have our things that we're good
I,
at and that we're
yeah.
able to
So
do.
stop shooting on yourself. It all comes from shoulds. I should be able to do this myself.
Right.
So
Exactly.
stop shooting on yourself, and then you won't feel bad. And
Everyone
yeah.
has their strengths.
Yeah.
I was at a comedy last night, and then we probably should wrap up. I was at a show last night. It was comedy and war related. It was a whole, like it was
Oh,
incredible.
wow.
And the woman was saying, the comedian was saying how in school she just couldn't, she had every she couldn't read and she was
Yeah.
dyslexic. She had like everything. She couldn't write, she couldn't read, she couldn't do math, she couldn't do whatever. And here she is on the stage being super successful. And I just was like, it was with my teenage daughter, and I was just like, this is the lesson here. It doesn't matter if we have ADHD or something else. If we've got something we're not good at, we can still
Yes.
absolutely excel. This woman was an incredible comedian.
Yes.
She's
Yes.
excelling in what
And
she's doing.
everyone is great at something.
Exactly.
Everyone is great at something. And if you spend your life trying to be great at the things that not naturally great for you, you lose out on finding the things that you are.
Exactly. It's a beautiful note to wrap up on, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
This is fabulous.
yeah, no, it's very true. And I want to thank everyone for listening and just say that, as I said, we know it can be challenging. We're definitely changing the way we're working because I've learned from you, images, automations, colors, make it more exciting, like all of that we're putting into our work. We're changing the way we're doing financial planning because so many people do have ADHD. And
Yeah. Just so that people who have ADHD are able to easily find you if they want to, how can they find you?
RifkaLebowitz.com, Rifka with an F for finance.
Ah, nice.
Nice.
Good. Okay. And you can find me at alanastern.com or jdhdcoaching.com. Thank you,
Amazing.
Rifka. This is
Thank you,
wonderful.
Alana. This was great.